I started the show because I spent my entire life, often without even realizing it, doing absolutely everything the way I was quote unquote supposed to. And my life still imploded anyway. In the wake of that, I realized I had a choice. I could keep doing things as I should, or I could, for the first time in my life, pivot and write my own rules. And the wildest things started happening. I'd say something scary and super honest to a friend out loud, and I'd watch her shoulders literally drop, like she'd been waiting her whole life for someone to say the thing first. And that's what this show is. It's a space where the thing gets said. Every episode celebrates an incredible woman who broke a should, made a pivot, and wrote her own rules. And not only did she live to tell the story from a brighter, bolder other side, but she's also generous and brave enough to sit down with me and with all of you and tell us exactly how she did it. Women's stories are so important. They're so often the clues to our future selves. And that is my hope for today, that you feel seen, that your shoulders drop a little, and that you can catch a spark of your future self in what you hear today. So let's dive in. Welcome back to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas. Nan Whaley grew up in a small town in Indiana, the daughter of a union auto worker who lost his job but never lost his dignity. She was the first in her family to graduate college. She became the youngest woman ever elected to her city commission, then the mayor of Dayton, Ohio. She held her city together through a year most places don't survive, a mass shooting, significant natural disasters, and more. She became the first woman her party ever nominated for the governor of Ohio. And when she didn't win, instead of disappearing, she walked straight into one of the hardest, most important jobs in the country right now as the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood, Southwest Ohio region. Here's what I find remarkable about her and what we're really here to talk about today. Most people claim one big reinvention. Nan has chosen to begin and evolve and choose over and over again. Her ability to write her own rules is remarkable. She's a self-described feminist, wife, daughter, sister, aunt, and friend. We're here for women who keep choosing to do hard things that support who they are and the life that they want to lead. So let's dive in. I am so excited to be here with Nan Whaley, who is the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood in the Southwest region of Ohio, amongst many other incredible things that we will get into today. Her resume is so impressive, as is the way that she shows up in her community. But I am so excited to talk with her today about so many things. If you have ever been frozen, standing at the edge of a decision about your own life, unable to move, terrified of choosing wrong, stay with us. Because Nan is one of the most decisive women I know, and she's going to tell you the truth about what it looks and feels like to make those hard decisions. That sometimes you make the call before you feel ready, and the readiness comes later. If you've ever been waiting to feel sure before you move, this hour is most definitely for you. This is going to feel like a friend telling you the honest truth that you know you need to hear. Nan, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for this conversation.
Betsy, it's so great to be with you, and love your story as well, and that you're doing this to support women all across the world. It's really cool.
Thank you. It is truly an honor of a lifetime to be able to sit down with amazing women like yourself. And like I say this all the time, but it's like a pinch me moment every week. I was like, did I really just get to have this cool conversation? So today I have no doubt will be another one. And I'm so glad that we're talking about decision making, trusting yourself, that kind of stuff. I think more than anything, women are absolutely terrified to be wrong for a plethora of reasons. And so I think one of the most common ways that that shows up is decision paralysis, which has this ripple effect on, gosh, are we chasing our dreams? Are we showing up authentically? Are we speaking our truth? So much of it is rooted in the fear of, oh my God, what if I make the wrong decision? Thinking that there's something absolutely catastrophic on the other side. So we're going to bust that myth today and just tell people you just got to do it.
That's right. That's right. I think you're exactly right. I do think it is socialized into women to think that way, that every decision is just so mammoth that it's best just not to make them and to get stuck. And, you know, what's the worst thing that can happen if you make a wrong turn? You can turn around and go back. It's no big deal. So,
right. Absolutely. Okay. One of my favorite questions that I like to ask at the top of the show is if, you know, everyone has listened to this episode and they take away, you know, what we've shared today, what is something that could actually change in their life?
If they listen to this episode, well, I mean, I hope from our conversation, I hope that, you know, people and women listen to this and recognize like, there's no decision that's going to be the end of the world. And I think too often we just put too much pressure on that. And then that becomes every single decision. I think it is rooted, frankly, in perfectionism.
Yes.
And perfectionism is like a really, really terrible attribute, frankly. Like, I mean, I kind of cringe when someone says, well, I'm a perfectionist, because I think they think that that's something great, and it's really something awful. And it can really, really collapse folks in, because it doesn't exist. Perfect doesn't exist. And so that's a real challenge for people. And I think that's where their indecision comes from.
Oh my God, that is exactly where we're going to go today. I couldn't agree more. And again, I think this idea of perfection, it's like perfectionism is like a shield that people try and put over themselves to keep them safe. But to your point, it literally doesn't exist.
It doesn't. And, I think especially for like, as we call like type A women that have been again socialized to have like the perfect grades, to be the valedictorian, to be the top of their class, to be the best, which being the best is different than being perfect.
Yes.
And I think that's a real distinction. And frankly, when we define perfect, it can have issues where it's like rooted in really toxic parts of our history, parts of our future, and it's not something we should really aspire to. Being great, being excellent, being the best is very different than being perfect. And I think that's something that we need to really think about when we're thinking about what we want our lives to be.
I hope that every woman literally just pressed pause, did the 10-second back, and played that back. Being the best is so different than being perfect. And
right.
Those are two separate things. You don't have to be perfect to be the best. It actually literally won't work, because perfect doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So there you go. That's what I hope people take away.
I literally have goosebumps. I absolutely love that. Okay. So taking a step back, I think I always like to start with sort of like some context of like the before and after. So there's the version of people that see of you on the news. So you were the mayor of Dayton, you were a candidate, you are the CEO of every, and when you walk into a room, which like also pause, because that's incredible. But I also like, there's the woman who's actually lived all of it as well. Right. And so I want to start back from when what you had shared about your father and being the auto worker's daughter. You said that you learned so much of your hard work and your strength and your resilience from your dad. So from what I understand, he was a union man who lost his job. But what I love is that he never lost his dignity.
No, great. And both my mom and dad, they've been married and live in Wyoming, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati. They're not from Cincinnati. Yeah, we're from Indiana. And look, I think my parents like put everything in my brother and I, right? And they really, taught us the value of hard work, to the point where I think like even my dad is like, look, I think you I said to my brother and I think you overlearned that lesson a little much, right? And my mom, when my dad would be laid off, like we had a laundromat behind the house, like my mom would go and work the laundromat. Like, that was like, it was like whatever it took to keep us housed and clothed and to have a good quality of life, helped, I took out student loans to go to college. My brother did too, but like, that was like the priority. And really, I mean, I'm a Gen X kid or an adult now, a middle-aged Gen Xer, which is also a whole another weird mind shift change for me. Totally. And like, I think, we're some of the last pieces of like a working class family could do that, right? Your dad could be an auto worker, your mom could work different jobs, and you could still afford to have a house and send your kids to college. And so that sacrifice that they made for my brother and I is something that like I just can't say is so meaningful to me. And the way that they modeled hard work is something that's just like always stuck with both my brother and I. And my brother, frankly, is like probably more successful than I am. He's an attorney in Cincinnati, and does like amazing work. We're in a mutual affection club. So, which I always hope for siblings that they have. But yeah, I definitely learned the value of hard work. And like, look, recognizing too that work defines a lot of people too. Like it is hard when you lose your job. It is hard when you're forced to retire early, like my dad did at 59. But he never let that really define who he was as a person. And, has really defined his life by this like crux of his family, which has been really, really special.
God, that's incredible. And I think it's so reaffirming to those in the parenting stage who are like, am I doing this right? Am I telling them right? Our kids are living a landscape that we never existed in, right? But to your point, the modeling of your parents and their priorities and how they showed up for those priorities, that's what really sticks, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
they encouraged you obviously to work really hard. And I love that your dad was like, can we calibrate for a second? Because I think
Yes.
I might have taught that too
Uh,
much.
about 10 years ago, he set my brother and I down. I was like, really? I don't like you work way harder than he said, than I did. And I was like, I know we do. Like, I think that's true. And my mom was a very hard worker too. She actually was a local official in Indiana. She was like the first Democrat ever elected in our county and like ever in 100 years. And so I think seeing my mom do that work too, I think really, inspired me to do the work that I did when I came to Ohio. So, yeah, they're both terrific. I'm so lucky that they're still in my life. I go to Cincinnati 3 days a week
Yeah.
for Planned Parenthood, and I get to have dinner with them about once a week. So it's just like I feel very, very lucky. A lot of people my age don't have that.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad they moved over to Ohio about 15 years ago. So it's really great.
Oh, that's so cool. And Wyoming is so beautiful. I love it
It's a
there.
nice town. I spend every Christmas day there. So there
Yeah,
you go.
it's a beautiful town. I absolutely love it. One of the other things that I think women struggle with, I know I certainly did, and I've interviewed other women on the show, is that so talking about you going to college and having to take out loans, but from what I understand, were you the first in your family to graduate college?
I was, yeah. And my
Yeah,
brother followed.
sure.
And like, I think my dad was number a 9 of 10 kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of my cousins went to college and graduated too. I think the Whaleys were like very, very like they really were the American dream of like the generation of my dad. And he was the like 9th of 10. So they were like post-war and even through World War II. And then
Yeah.
there was this belief like they were mostly iron workers, the men were, and they really instilled in like most of my cousins graduated from college. And have gone on to do all kinds of different things. But that idea that education could pull you out. What's hard for me now, Betsy, is that is not what I see for kids today.
I
It's
agree.
not a guarantee, and that's really I think it's really the problem that we're having right now in society, because the idea of American meritocracy is kind of falling apart because the cost of college is like if you had my life now,
Mhm.
30 years later, and you had the same story as my family, I wouldn't get to college.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard to understand and hear. And like I just got very lucky in my timing of
Yeah.
like going to college in the 90s. And it's not,
Well,
I mean, the cost is just
the
insane.
cost is astronomical as well as the ability to get into college. Like
That too.
I'm just starting, my oldest is 15, so I'm starting to like peak in the college realm, and I have a niece who's older, and they're both so accomplished in school, and you meet these college counselors who are working so hard to get these kids placed, and they're like their acceptance rates are that of like 84%. And I'm like, wait. I was like, I don't know, but yes, I'm with you that not only is it hard to get into, but then it can leave you in crippling debt where
Right. And you're not
yeah,
going to make as much as the debt anymore. Like
yeah,
it doesn't financially make sense like it did in the 90s, because when you come out, the rule was you take enough debt that the debt you took on, I was told when I to graduate, was the debt should equal your first year pay. And so
mm,
now I'm aging myself. I turned 50 this January. So when I graduated in 98, I had
mhm,
about $30,000 in debt, and
yeah,
my first job was $30,000. That is not the case anymore. Like,
no,
these kids are coming out with six-figure debt. They're not going to have a six-figure job coming out of college. And that's where it's gotten completely out of bounds and made it impossible, particularly for what's left of the working class, to get their kids through there.
yeah,
So it's become a way that we're again making the wealthy more wealthy and the poor more poor. The separation, there's no middle anymore. And that's what I see. That's just really tough. And look, like, college isn't for everybody. I'm not saying that. Definitely was for me.
yeah,
And like kids like me I think, should have that opportunity. They don't have it anymore. And that's
yeah. It is
really,
absolutely
it's really
heartbreaking.
sad. It's really heartbreaking.
One of the things I do love about your college story, though, is that I read that you were a chemistry major.
I
Um,
was,
that's
I was.
amazing. And but then you've done something completely different, which I think so often. One of the things I really struggled with was I knew I wanted to be in advertising since seventh grade. Talking about dating ourselves, I was reading YM magazine.
I love it. They were magazines, yeah.
Yes, right. I just said the word magazine, let alone YM. And I
Mhm.
was reading YM magazine and there was a secret deodorant ad that was like center spread. And I was like, oh, I was like, I get why this is in here. And I get this is important that it's in the middle. And just to like understand human behavior and how you can reach people and relate product. I don't know why in seventh grade, I was like, I love this. And so I knew what I wanted to do. But then after getting the taste of entrepreneurship and getting involved more in community work, I wanted to pivot, but I was really stuck in my way of being like, but I said I was going to do advertising. And I just, for some reason in my head was like, well, if you said you're going to do it, you just have to do it for the rest of your life. But I love that you came out of college as a chemistry major and you're like, well, I'm going to take a pivot.
Yeah, it took a hard pivot. I like, look, I think, I would, this is my other advice to young people,
Yeah.
a first generation college student, also, my parents were really about that college degree being monetized. And
Mm-hmm.
so, it was science or math for us or science or business. So my brother was a finance major and
Mm-hmm.
I've never worked for corporate. Like I like I knew it like in my bones, like profit just has never motivated me. And
Mm-hmm.
I could see that my brother and I were raised the same way, like same opportunities. And my brother would like save, like we had a paper route when I was 10 and he was 8. We shared it. He would save his money, talk about like what he was going to spend it. I was like, oh, like, I can buy a Coke when I'm walking down. Like
Totally.
it was just about like the experience more than the money. Or,
Yep.
oh, it's Christmas time. I can buy these gifts for my friends. Like that was my mindset. So
Yeah.
I've just never been motivated by like increasing profits. That's never been a goal that's moved me. But like, for me, like I wouldn't do business, right? That was like something I was just like, I knew that. So the science route for me was like really the only thought. And that's something, again, like as a first generation college student and college grad, that was a hard lesson to learn that really I probably should have just gone full in on the humanities or liberal arts. That would have been something. I accidentally got a poli-sci minor
You're like,
while I
oops.
was there just because I took extra classes because it's what interested me.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I think too, I really loved um, when I came to Dayton, I loved Dayton and the city. And it's, there's a grittiness and a blue collarness to it. And this idea that like if you work hard, play by the rules, like you can get ahead. And there's not a lot of young people in Dayton, frankly. And so
Interesting.
when I went to at that time, when I went to like volunteer, like everyone was like, who is this young person? Like, let us give them lots of opportunity. And that's really how that happened. So it was great.
That's
It was great. Yeah, Dayton
Yeah.
did a solid
What
one.
made you brave enough to pivot because you knew that, your parents had wanted you to college, you went to college, you took on this debt. What made you brave enough to pivot where you had been told, finance, medicine, science, these are the safe routes. This will give you the ROI on your degree. What made you brave enough to pivot and what like kind of drew you in?
I think the biggest thing was like, I found it very boring. Like I
Yeah.
found chemistry. I just knew I was just too bored. I got through it, like, and much like your advertising story, like I had to get the degree. So I
Yeah.
got the degree
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't like, and I think probably because I had the degree, that's all like my family really cared, like really, they wanted me to be happy, but like the degree mattered and then
Yeah.
having a job. And so when I had a job, they were like, fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. And like, I'm an extreme extrovert and, chemists are not extrovert, like in
Oh,
general, that is not a normal personality trait, I'd say. And so it was like one of the few places I've been in my life where like people didn't say a lot and they were like in their own, and that was interesting. And so I think that, just the boredom of it, I will say like the chemistry degree did, help me like think about how I measure things in government. Like, it did make me much more data centered. So there
yeah,
was benefit to it. And,
totally.
you learn a lot about like, just a way of thinking in science that's really valuable. So it was still valuable, but like, I think I knew like right away out of college, like I will never use this degree, like in the way
I
I make money.
Right? You're like, wait a minute. Do you ever feel like, I mean, those are those moments where you're like, I think I put the wrong shoe on the wrong foot.
Oh yeah.
I went to college at Charleston my first year. I love to visit Charleston. What a lovely city. But
So
I'm like
pretty.
very fast paced and very liberal and very like, and I just was like, I literally felt like I had my shoes on the wrong feet for the whole year that my parents made me stay. They're like, take a year, give it a go. And like, I still love it there. I love the people I've met, but I literally just felt like I was walking with the wrong shoes on the wrong feet.
Yeah, Betsy, that's a great analogy. That's about like how I felt about the degree of chemistry. So
Right?
all
But
my friends were like political science, but like I just like that's who I gravitated towards and gravitated toward that like history, poli sci work. So yeah.
yeah. Well, some of the nuggets that I'm pulling out of your story are like, what I love is that you were brave enough to listen to your intuition, to know what you like and you don't like, to follow your curiosity with your poli sci classes, and that you are able to look at that experience instead of being like, oh my gosh, I didn't use the degree that I worked so hard for. You're like, oh, not for me, but I learned some really cool things that I can then bring to the next chapter of my life. And I think that that is like one of the most important things we can do in a pivot is to be like, what do we like? What do we don't like? Filter it out and bring it with us.
Right. And I'll say this too. The other funny thing I remember when I was in my 20s and I'd say I was a chemistry major and you're surrounded by all these like poli sci majors. It's such a different, like nobody knows anybody that's a chemistry major. So it was like this, like some sort of math genius, like people thought I was way smarter than what I was which isn't the case, but I was like, okay, it's different. So it worked out fine. I never felt very bad about it. I was just relieved to get through it, frankly, and get the degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you find yourself in civic work. You are the mayor of Dayton.
Mhm.
In the time that you are the mayor, so many things happen.
Mhm.
And I mean, literally, like you have survived under your stewardship, mass shooting, massive natural disasters, amongst many other things. And you handled it with such grace, with such leadership. Can you tell me what those quiet moments were like at home or like the 3 a.m. moments? So, for those people who see you in this world as the strong, positive, polished, put together leader, which is all true. And for those of us who also want to show up and feel that way, but then in the quiet of our own home, sometimes feel different. Do you ever have those moments where you're just like ruminating or doubting, or like, what are those quiet moments like for you?
Yeah, so I would say I don't have any children, which is a real difference than most women. Like I like that is makes me
Yeah.
an outlier, and it was a choice, which also makes it different for most women. So
Yeah.
I can't speak with data, but like qualitatively of people
Mhm.
that don't have children, there aren't a lot of us um, that made that decision. And my husband and I were like, we decided it pretty intently because we were like really committed to this idea of public work. And I think too, honestly, Betsy, like the amount of time my parents put into me,
Yeah.
I was like, I just can't do that. Like,
Yeah.
I just, that was just, I almost like it was like too high a bar. Like my brother has 2 kids, so he was fine. It was like, but I just was like, no, I can't do
Yeah.
that. So I'm like, great. I'm like so impressed with people that choose to have children. It is such a sacrifice and it's an optimistic act and it is key for like our future. But it was something I wasn't interested in doing. And, this idea of like serving the public was where I wanted to spend my time, and again, I
Yeah.
have the whole idea that time is finite. And so like, so that was a pretty direct decision. And so for me, like the quiet moments here, during the time as mayor, which I loved being mayor, I spent 8 years doing it. The day I won, I rolled over to my husband and said, "Can you believe I'm the mayor of Dayton?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Me, like, this is a shock. I'm not from Dayton. I have no relatives. Like that, I ran against an incumbent male and a man that had been on the ballot for decades and beat them both. Like it was like, I mean, I surprised a lot of people in Dayton and myself.
I
So,
love it. I love it
um,
so much.
and the things you mentioned that happened were in my second term. And for me, the first term was like a big learning. Like I couldn't get enough of it. It was I did a lot of offensive work. We passed an earnings tax that funded universal preschool for every 3 and 4-year-old in Dayton, which is like a very, like, we are a poor city that we invested, like we got folks to invest in themselves that way is a huge deal. But
Incredible.
we also had like the opioid epidemic. We're the tip of the spear on heroin deaths in Dayton when I was in my first term. So I learned a lot
Interesting.
about leadership on the job, right?
Yeah.
So when the terrible mass shooting happened, which we're talking about in August of 2019, it's probably the last shooting that made national news. They're so often now.
Yes.
They don't show up like they did and it was because El Paso, Texas had a mass shooting at a Walmart, and 12 hours later we had a mass shooting in the Oregon district in 2019.
Mm.
And I have watched my fellow colleague mayors go through that, like the Pulse nightclub in Orlando and the
Yes.
Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, and I can keep on going. And I just always felt like there was going to be like not if, but when that was going to happen to me. And
Yes.
so I really
Yes.
tried to learn the lessons of the mayors that had gone before me on that.
Yeah.
And they gave great advice about how to lead. And I think, for me, I have always tried to be like, who I am in my house is who I am out of my house. And so
Totally.
like what you see is what you get. And
I love it.
so, and look, like some people can't do that, but I can't keep track enough, like, to separate it out. Like I probably curse a little more inside my house than outside my house, but I still
I love
curse
it.
outside. I still
I think
curse
we all do.
outside.
Yeah.
Like, I
Totally.
mean, I'm a known cursor. Like there's been stories in the newspaper about how much I love to curse. So I just think that is the case. And um, I have been really, really lucky just to have friends and support systems that have been able to like help me talk through it. The other thing I did, like, I have a therapist, and, in
Yes.
2019, I announced it. Like, I mean, I had a hell of a 2019, and I was so worried about people going through the victims, and like, not just the people that were killed, sadly, and their families, but the people that were in the Oregon district, hundreds of people. Like I was like, you got to see somebody and talk that
Yeah.
out. So, I've kept a therapist since 2019. It's a privilege to get to do that. Like not all people can do that and have the money to
Yes.
do that. But mental health is something I take very seriously and, really try to normalize. And I think if you think about the work that I've done over the past 20 years, it's about normalizing tough things that happen to people and not hiding in the shadows. And I think, shame is something that is really painful for people. And if we can, you know, if people look up to you in different ways and then you say like, yeah, I go see a therapist, that changes how people view things. Or, I've had this loss and it's really been hard. Then people can say, okay, I can get through this too. It's not like we have to take stigma away from decisions like deciding to have an abortion, for example, is
Yes.
something that we work on stigma. Like there should not be any shame in making those decisions for yourself and your family.
Uh,
So being as public as possible is the way I look at it about these decisions.
well, I think also, do you ever find like shame is like this horrible, suffocating blanket?
Mhm.
And I couldn't agree more. That's like one of the reasons I started the show, that when you say the thing out loud, you see people's shoulders drop. They're like,
Right.
wait, whether it be the exact same scenario and they're like, me too, which is a beautiful moment because they feel seen, or just the ability to say something that's scary so that whatever their scary thing no longer has such a death grip on them as well.
Right.
But I also feel like for those of us, we all carry shame, which has got to go. But when you say the thing that you're afraid of out loud, it loses its power.
It does. It does. And if you have like it feeds it when you don't say it or you keep it in the dark. It's kind of like that movie,
Yes.
Monsters Inc., right? Like you
Uh-huh.
turn on the light and it's gone. And so I think like, and I think it's gotten a lot better. Like this is what's really fun. I'll look back in 10 years and I'll be like, oh, everybody's saying it. That's so great. But in
Mhm.
2019, there weren't a lot of public officials saying like, yeah, I go see a therapist.
Yeah.
And so really trying to normalize these kind of behaviors, I think are really, really key. And like, getting in the light, if you're brave enough, like, look, I know that it's hard too, because at the same time, you do get people that say nasty things to you, and you do
Yeah.
get folks that will take the other side, and that's not for everybody too. So I feel like I have incredibly thick skin that is not a normal kind of thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the healthiest thing in the world. But with that comes like a fearlessness around like, no, I'm going to say this because that will help others say it too, that may not have the kind of skin I have to take people's hits.
I think that's incredible, and like what a gift to give to your community. And I appreciate you saying that, like, in your first term, you kind of lived and learned while doing. Like, as accomplished as you were going into it, you're still in a new role. And for all those people out there who are trying new things and are just feeling like they are learning as they go, to normalize that's an okay place to be.
It's
It's
the
kind of like,
best. It's the best place to be.
ooh,
That's
that's
what I
cool.
would say. I mean,
Tell
like,
me
look, I know
more.
it's uncomfortable. I always find that the most fun is when you're just starting out, right?
Mhm.
And when you're learning and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. Like when you have it all like pretty much figured out, how boring, you know?
Totally. Time to do the next thing.
Yeah, like time to go on, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's like it's frustrating, it's hard, but it's the
Hmm.
best. Like
Hmm.
you're figuring, when you're in a new role, you're figuring the people out, the new people out, what kind of skills they have, when you're leading that way. I think that's the most fun is when you get something new. I've been at Planned Parenthood for 2 years. I was not in healthcare before this. I've learned so much. I was having dinner with friends last night and I was like, and they kind of like, I hadn't talked to them in a few years. And I said, I know, look how much I've learned about this.
Yeah,
And that's so fun. Uh,
totally.
and I think that's like the best part of getting to do work. Like and what I think back to our initial discussion about, this fear of like indecision, like if you're bored, go do something else. It will be fine.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
will be fine. And you'll probably like it better and you'll do better at it because you're not bored.
Because you're not bored, right? You have like energy to actually go do something and you're invested. What is your advice to women who, I mean, because you're in such a public, either as the mayor or as the CEO, like everybody's watching.
Mhm.
Um, and I love the mindset shift of actually like, this is the funnest part. This is the figuring it out. This is the puzzle pieces. Like, this is the
Right,
game. But
right.
how do you encourage women to be brave, knowing that they're going to stumble and that people are going to watch? Like, what advice would you have to women who are sort of stuck in that paralysis because they're like, I don't want anyone to see me fail?
Yeah, I think like again, like and this is something else I really try to do is like we need to say like, yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
We
Right.
have to normalize failure. If you never fail, you're doing a terrible job.
I agree.
Failure is a sign that you are pushing up against your limits. I talked a little about this a year or so ago. Look, I ran for governor. I got killed. I mean, I got my
Mm.
ass handed to me. I mean, and that is like, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that for folks. I mean, that's a pretty public way to fail. Yeah, I mean, and not even like 40% of Ohioans voted for me. I mean, that's tough. Okay. So, and I found in that failure, I was surprised, frankly, like, I knew it was like probably like in my mind, you're always running to win, but like, you could fail. And like the same with running for mayor, I won, but like, I'm so glad I did it. Like,
Yeah.
if I didn't do it, I'm excited about Amy Acton running for governor. And
Yeah.
so, at least there's been one woman that's run for governor. So like the next one maybe can win, right?
Yeah.
I think there's that work that you have to do. And like it was a great experience for me personally, but like, I mean, I would still rather have won, don't get me wrong, but like
Right.
there's lessons in the failure that are pretty amazing too. And I also believe we learn more when we fail than when we succeed because we're, as like part of fight or flight, we're like engaged more into learning more about it. But that we also have to remember that, because we're not hunter gatherers anymore, the fear of failure is way higher than the fear of success. You feel it more. And so you
Yeah.
just have to really get your mind around like what your body is doing about that instead of just like, oh, well, that's the way, like, thousands of years of, programming of, how to get food is the reason why we're in this place now. That's not the
Right.
real.
And if you
It's
fail,
not,
you starve to death and die. We're no
and
longer in
that's
those terms.
right. That's why we have that. And like,
Yeah.
that's not the case today. Like, so you just got to remind yourself that those are like innate things that are from like the hunter gatherer stage, which we are not in anymore. Nor do we want to be. And like lots of
Right.
people, like, the fear of like living was the issue. And so that's a much different situation. So, when I ran for governor and lost, it was like, well, what's the worst thing that could have happened? Well, I ran for governor,
Right.
not a bad thing. So yeah, so I think like that was a great lesson for me. I don't like to fail. I hate it. I'm very competitive. But like, I do feel like it's really important to push up against the limits, and failure is something that could happen.
And like, I think about the next generation watching you and seeing that someone can put their neck out there, try something. And like, oh, I just read something the other day. It's like, it's not a failure, it's a fall. And if you get back up, you're good. Like, it's
Right.
if you stay down that you failed. Otherwise, you just fell. Like,
That's right. That's right. I think that's right. And I think people are even uncomfortable with the word failure. I've,
mhm.
talked to women about this, and I try to use the word. I think again, yeah, like, I wanted to win the governor's seat. I did not win the governor's seat. That I failed at, right? That was a goal that I did not reach, but I
Yeah,
reached all kinds of other things in pursuit of that goal.
absolutely.
And that's great too.
Yeah.
So like, that's the way life is. And I'm better for it. I'm better for going for it than not going for it. And really proud of the campaign we ran, even if it wasn't.
Absolutely. And like you said, pave the way for other women. I mean,
That's
that
my
is,
real hope. That's my real hope. I mean, there's
yeah.
so few women. When I was elected mayor in 2013, of the top 200 cities, there were like 35 of us that were women, and now it's like so much more. And this next generation of women, so much better on leadership.
Excellent.
They're just awesome. So excited. I mean, like, think about it. Like, we still don't have gender equality, but like, we've gotten better from like 1972 until the fall of Roe on gender equality. It's gotten the closest it's ever gotten. And like, the way women have just owned it and have like taken over places, like, I'm like, we did that in one generation. That's kind of
Hell
amazing.
yeah.
Like, how far women have come and how
Yes.
far they can go. We gotta be constant on it, because people are trying to take away those rights and those opportunities. But it's pretty exciting to see this next generation of women just running for office, being leaders, fighting their way, and not thinking anything of it. It's really exciting to see this next
It's
generation.
so incredibly exciting. And just to like to take away those limiting beliefs of being like, oh, well, I'm a woman, like even if they were subconscious to be like, I could never do that because you don't see it modeled. But now you guys have paved this incredible path that it's like, well, yeah, sure. Like I see it in front of me. I can do this as well.
And I could do it better, which is
Yeah,
also
right.
cool, which they
And
do.
we want them to do it better, right?
They do it better, and so it's very cool. I love it.
That's very, very cool. Have you ever been afraid of succeeding? I think a lot of women also struggle with the like, I have these big dreams. And the like to your point, the exciting part is the dreaming, the planning, the strategizing. And then you start going and you're like, oh my God, it's actually happening. And then this fear sets in. And sometimes I see women kind of sabotage and be like, oh God, I don't know if I really could be that person. There's a million things that sit behind it. But I see women who are just in the grasp of their dreams, of their pivots, of their now what moments. And then they're like so afraid to be seen, so afraid to step into a level up because they've never been at this altitude before. Do you have any advice for women who are kind of afraid of who are it's interesting because it's so often the very driven women and then they're like, "Oh God, I'm actually doing the thing."
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say back, I haven't experienced that, I'd have to say. And I think if I was saying why is that happening? Again, I think it's back to this perfectionism.
Mm,
And you're worried that you won't do it perfect. And so you step back. And so that's why we have to like be like, no, like, part of being great is stepping into that role. And part, like, I am going to mess up. I
yeah.
am going to make mistakes in this role. Like, perfectionism doesn't exist. And so I think that's where that comes from, frankly.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that again, like, you know, and look, you might take a role and somebody could do a better job. That doesn't matter. You're still in the role. Like,
Yeah.
you still got it.
Yeah.
Men do not think that.
No.
Okay. Like, they do not think, very
No.
few. They do not think, oh, well, you could have done a lot better. They never think that. We do that all
No,
the
they
time.
never
I'm
do.
so socialized. And that, I think, is that perfectionism coming in again. And I like, no, you're in the role. You're doing your best. That is the best. That's it.
I also think sometimes women get afraid that something's going to be taken away from them. And like, if I think about your running for governor, like, you were in political service and were mayor, running for governor. And then one could, if they chose the mindset to be like, well, that opportunity was taken away from you.
Mhm.
But instead, you were approaching it in a way that every woman should, to be like, I have lived, I have learned, I am proud, I see well beyond just the numbers that came back from the poll. I've paved a path for people behind me. And it springboarded you into a new place,
Mhm.
which is a new, beautiful Alice in Wonderland kind of rabbit hole that takes you down to meet a whole new crew of friends.
Mhm.
So I think just also like the perfectionism, it doesn't exist, and like nothing can actually be taken away from you. It's just an
Right.
experience.
Right. And I always say to folks, you know, I really believe like to everything a season.
Mm,
And again, this whole idea that you're going to be exactly the same over decades is just not true. And even if you
mhm,
think you are, you're not. Like
mhm.
that's a lie you're telling yourself, I think. And if you are, like, if it is the truth, oh my God, how boring, right?
Yeah.
So I was actually worried when I left being mayor to run for governor, and if I lost, one of the things I was worried is like, well, am I gonna miss it? Right?
Mm,
I loved it. Like, don't misunderstand. There were really hard parts of it, but like it
sure.
was the honor of my life to lead the city. And I was really surprised at how I didn't miss it. Like I loved it. I love
Yeah.
like seeing my friends from that period. I'm proud of what I did, but I do not miss it. And I really thought I would. Okay. I
Yeah.
thought like I would be like, and this happens to a lot of people in elected office, like they die, they like are dying to run again. And I have not felt that.
Mm,
And I always wonder, like, I wonder if I will feel that. And I haven't. And now I'm still like how I like to say I'm politics adjacent, right? Like,
totally. Yeah.
you know, Planned Parenthood is taking political attacks nonstop.
Hmm.
Politics still plays a heavy role in women's health care. Like, it's still like I firmly believe in the power of democracy. Like, so
Hmm.
all of that is still in my DNA and still like what I'm working for in a different way, but I don't have to be the person on the ballot.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how I was going to feel with that. And so that was a place where I took a leap and I was like, oh, I'm going to try this. And I don't know how it's going to go. And I've been pleasantly surprised that, it's great.
I
It's
think
really.
that's incredible. How did you end up in the seat? Did they approach you? Did you become passionate about women's healthcare and wanted to find a way to get involved? How was that evolution?
I have always been active in abortion access.
Mm,
I was galvanized by it, by the women of Dayton when I, started working and organizing. Actually, I kid, the first time I was actually picketed in my life, I tease that this job fits me because if people don't hate me, I don't really know what to do with myself. And so, the first time that someone picketed me was actually on the University of Dayton campus. I
mm.
was registering voters with the college Democrats, and a student came up and put a sign up next to me that said like register to vote with the party that kills babies and followed me around campus. I was 19.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so here this like was this abortion issue. I wasn't even like talking about abortion. I was like registering for like Bill Clinton for president. Like that's where I was.
Hmm.
And so like this issue has always been in my face as a woman. I found even from that beginning. And then when I was running for governor, it was also the year that Roe fell in 22. So in the
Mm.
midst of that race, we lost Roe. And so it kind of galvanized the whole conversation about the governor's race even and like what the work was. And then in 23, the referendum happened in Ohio where we put in the constitutional amendment in the state of Ohio to protect abortion access in Ohio, which is a huge deal. And a lot
Yeah.
of people thought Ohio wouldn't do it. So all of those things happened, and I was like still like after the governor's race, I was working with mayors and helping other mayors, with their leadership, and I love that work too.
Yeah.
But the board of Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio approached me about this job. I didn't even know it was open. I didn't know, and I went through the search, and this kind of a couple of friends were like, "You should look at this," and I was being approached regularly for different positions, always in nonprofits. Was never really interested in corporate work, and um, reproductive health has a like I mean it's messy, right? It's not
Right.
like it is not like you're doing healthcare work on hearts, right?
Right.
Like
There's
women's
nothing
health
black or white about it.
women's health has thousands of year long history of oppression and affection, so it is like it's very political everywhere. And it's also a place where there's all kinds of disparities around studies around even how we treat women's health versus breast cancer versus prostate cancer, all of that. So it's always been messy. So I went through the search and didn't know if I was going to. I said, yeah, I'll talk to you. And went in the search with an attitude of like, well, if I take this job. I mean, how arrogant am I?
No, but that's also knowing your value and knowing what you have the ability to make your own decisions. So good for you. Everyone else,
Yeah.
go in with that mindset. If I choose.
Yeah, so that's really the attitude I took on it. And so I used the search process to really learn about the organization, learn about their challenges, and if my leadership would fit the
Mhm.
organization. And yeah, so I said, okay, yeah, I think this will be a nice fit. And then, I've had a great time. I'm just ending up like 2 years, July 1st. I mean, it's been amazing. The people I work with at Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio, I mean, they're badasses. They
Yeah.
are mostly badass women. They are completely mission driven about this work. You don't work at Planned Parenthood because you want to do healthcare. Like you
Yeah.
work at Planned Parenthood because you want to do fight for bodily autonomy and women's freedom and people's freedom to make the decision about their bodies that they choose. That's very personal.
Yes.
And this latest thing that happened to us in April in Cincinnati, our clinic was set on fire by an arsonist in April.
Oh
And
my gosh.
our clinic actually was built in 1985 because someone did firebomb that one. So this is like a history for us in
Oh
Cincinnati.
boy.
And the first floor was like destroyed, but like the second and third floors, I got there in the middle of the night. Luckily, no one was hurt. And the fire department said, "Hey, look, the elevator works. Second, third floor. You could see some people the next day." And so, talking to our doctors and nurses, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll be there at 7:45 the next morning." We opened the next day after someone tried to set us on fire. I mean, that's the kind of people that I work with that are unbossed, unafraid, and they know lives are on the line to
Yeah.
for people to have access. The clinics we have in Cincinnati and Dayton, um, Ohio is a safe haven state now for people.
Mhm.
You can't get the service we provide in Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Florida, Georgia, Texas. And so they come and cross that Ohio River and come to see us. And we know how important that care is, not just for Ohioans, but people all across the country. So I find like doing impact work is so important.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
Yep.
It's dangerous to be mayor. It's dangerous. I
Yeah.
mean, but like, I feel like that's like my role in the world and the place I like to take up space in the world too.
I love that. When you think about the woman that you wake up every morning to serve, that
Mhm.
your mission is aligned to, can you tell us about her?
I mean, she's different everywhere. Like she
Mm.
could be, a mother of four that her doctor has said, you cannot have another baby or you'll die.
Mm.
She could be someone that, didn't really understand what was happening, hadn't gotten birth control. She could be someone that's coming to us for the first time without her parents. So many people, Betsy, I meet everybody has a Planned Parenthood story, men and
Yeah.
women. And so many stories are, this was the first place I went to healthcare without my parents.
Mm.
This was the first time I took an adult decision
Yeah.
about my body. And so we have amazing, like our uh, 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 patient satisfaction rate is like 96%,
It's
20
incredible.
points, 20 points ahead of any other, healthcare provider on the average.
Yeah.
And I think, we just sit in this, non-judgmental care. It could be like we provide, gender affirming care. So people that are transitioning and,
Yes.
don't know the safe place to talk about how they want to transition
Mhm.
and gender. Or we could be a place where like, hey, things aren't going right and I need a cancer screening.
Yeah.
So that non-judgmental care is something that's so powerful and so personal and
Mhm.
so private. Um,
Yes.
those stories. And then when people decide to tell those stories to us, I mean, and tell them publicly, like they're stigma busting themselves and they're saving the lives of women and people that follow them.
Good.
It's really amazing. It's really
It,
amazing.
it's incredible. And I think, just creating that safe, non judgmental space, wouldn't the world be such an incredible place if everyone approached life like that, to be a safe, non judgmental, to your point, every walk of life walks through the door. It doesn't matter
They
what
do.
political side you're on. It doesn't matter where you are in your gender journey. It doesn't matter where you are in your healthcare journey. You guys are an open door to help people feel safe and secure in their body.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, there are people that are, anti-choice and the right to life movement have walked through those doors to receive care. Like,
Yeah.
and we know that. We
Yeah.
know,
And what do
and
you
we
think
still
brings
don't.
them through those doors
Oh,
finally?
they need birth control or they need an abortion. I mean, I've
Yeah.
heard stories about,
Yeah.
somebody in the anti-choice movement bringing their daughter in. Okay,
Hmm.
that happens.
It
And
does.
and you know what? There's not even judgment there.
Yeah. Because there is something to you really don't know what it's like until you walk in those shoes.
No, and this is so personal. And like,
It
look,
is.
you know, um, we see some of the toughest stories that women have come through those doors. Some of the most empowering stories that
Hmm.
women have come through those doors. So it is all walks of life,
Hmm.
and it's just a real privilege to get to fight to protect that. And what is sad is that people have to travel so far now to get that kind of service and that quality of
Right.
service.
And then to your point back at the top of the show around access and affordability and, just the cost of travel alone.
Oh, right.
or or the ability to travel. If I think about the mom of four, and like maybe she's a single mom who's going to stay and watch
Mhm.
the kids, and if it's a life or death matter, it's complicated. Maybe she doesn't want to, but she has to, because all of a sudden her children won't have a mother because she will not survive. Like,
That's right. Every situation is different. And yeah, we have
mhm.
patient navigators that help patients coming from far away. Like, is it a Greyhound ticket? How an Uber? Like, how can we get you there? We provide, we have people that donate to help funds for hotel rooms if folks are coming from far away.
Mm,
But think about it. Typically, like 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. Okay. So
wow.
people don't realize that 1 in 4 women have had an abortion. Someone you know, someone you love
Yeah.
has had an abortion. And I think people need to hear that and
Hmm.
think about that when they think
Hmm.
about this issue. Someone you know and someone you love has had an abortion. It's a fact.
Right.
Okay.
If you're sitting at dinner with four of your best friends, like we often do on a girls' night, 1 in 4 statistically has had an abortion.
Someone has had someone you know and someone you love. And so, and it is a hard story for people that have had one to tell because it's so stigmatized. So I'm
Yeah.
even more amazed when people share their stories. Like, and I say, like, look, you don't have to share it on social media. You don't have to share it with us. We love it when you do,
Yeah.
right? Because we know that is like a huge way to pave the way for people to take the stigma away from this issue. But tell your family, tell
Hmm.
your loved ones, because that has changed hearts and minds on this issue and has
Hmm.
made the next generation better. And we see it, right? 30 years ago in Southwest Ohio, the majority of people would not have voted for abortion access, and
Hmm.
they did in 2023.
Yeah.
So, just like you're doing here,
Hmm.
there is nothing more powerful than sharing your story. Nothing.
Yes.
Nothing in the world is more powerful than people sharing their stories. And so we really encourage people to share their story. They can come see us online if they want to tell us. We love to be the keeper of the stories, and we love it when they let us share them publicly too.
And I think, when we've talked about sharing something that you're afraid to share out loud because of shame, and that it not only liberates you from the shame, but it gives people permission for whatever other shame they're holding. But when you're saying this, it also makes me think that it gives people the opportunity to support you. And shame is so lonely. And I know this is a tricky one because it is so highly stigmatized, but whether it be from the people that you love or whether it be people within the Planned Parenthood community, to just not have to carry this alone.
That's right. That's right. You're not alone. And I mean the love and support and Planned Parenthood and like celebration of your decision. Like,
Hmm.
you know, um, we change lives and we empower people's lives in this decision, and that's great. I mean, one of our docs tells the story of like, hey, like I like to talk about how this is just a normal part of the day, like
Yeah.
for a lot of people, right? And we really normalize and we think it should be normalized. Okay, like that's a real core belief in us that this is women's healthcare. Abortion is healthcare. We say the word. We want people to say the word.
Hmm.
Again, we have to get in the light. And that's the way that we can really make women feel their full potential and then be able to have their full potential. Because this is what has been happening in America for decades. Even with the passage of Roe, the stigmatization of women and their decisions is constant, and this is the strongest example of that.
I mean, just the opportunity for choice and autonomy. I think that's all anyone wants in their life, is to feel like they have some power and control over their body, their safety, their happiness, their future. And there are the reasons why obviously run an enormous gamut. But I think, I appreciate the women that you represent who need that choice so desperately. And to be honest, as you said, 1 in 4 do. It could be any of us.
It is any of us. I mean, it is,
Mm-hmm.
and you know someone that you love. So
Yeah.
it is an incredible honor to do this too. Like I am so lucky with my life as I'm in my 50th birthday year. I just feel so grateful to my family that I have had the opportunity in my life to get to work on things that really matter to me all the time, no matter what. And like so many people don't get that opportunity. So I just feel really, really lucky that that's the life that I have. I got to pinch myself a lot of
I
times.
appreciate your humility and your perspective that it is luck, but you've also carved that path for yourself, and you've been brave enough to say, this matters to me, I'm going to work on it. I think a lot of people are afraid to say what matters to them out loud and to put that out there. So again, I think you're paving a path that everyone is watching. And it's so incredible, whether it be these people are passionate about similar issues or have their own thing. At least it gives women the permission to be like, I'm going to work on what I genuinely care about.
That's right. That's right. We got to get more people to get to do that. That's what life's about. So great.
I'm sorry that I don't know the answer to this, but when I was thinking about these women and the shame and hiding it and not telling their stories, is there support with mental health within Planned Parenthood, or is it mostly on
No, we have like a strong, we don't provide mental health support. Some places do, but we have providers that we can refer to. So like
strong network?
yeah, we view our whole, like, we're like a front door of non-judgmental care. So like, for
Mm,
example, in the transgender community, we provide gender affirming care, and then we provide the resources of safe doctors. Like, right. So
awesome.
these are the doctors we can refer to you if you decide to go further and have surgeries. Like, that is the front door that we provide. The same for mental health support. We think that's really important. Like, and we have just really highly trained professionals, like, our nurses and docs that like are looking out for those issues and really checking in with people when they come to see us. We also know that like a lot of times, we have like we also see where healthcare is going to go because our patients are so young, right? Like,
Mm,
that it's the first time they have a choice of their healthcare, they come to us. And then they're typically like, 18 to 30 is who we're seeing. And that we can see where healthcare is going and the kind of healthcare that how they want their healthcare to be served. And so like we're learning a lot about, the next generation. It's not surprising. It's stuff that's been talked a lot, Betsy. Like, young people don't want to come and see you unless they need a procedure. They want to text you. They want to they want it like on their phone. So like, Planned Parenthood is the number one birth control provider in the country with an app called PP Direct, and you can literally just text to get your birth control sent to you. So, people like that, or can get an STD test, STI testing through an app, because people prefer that. And so we like try to meet our patients where they are, and sometimes that's on their phone.
I think just like that feels like such a breath of fresh air, where we think about healthcare and its totality and how it is becoming so hard to access, and it is so hard to get a hold of a doctor, and everything just feels hard
Right.
to advocate for yourself.
It is.
There is
And
so
they,
much
and
data collected in the healthcare community,
yeah,
but you're using your data to
right.
inform services that meet people where they are.
And we do a lot, like Planned Parenthood nationally do a lot of research, again, because there's not enough research around particularly the LGBTQ community and women's healthcare. And so we're doing that work all the time too. So the research, the training, we train a ton of residents. Like every day there's a resident in our facility because, the future OBGYNs come through Planned Parenthood. And then the services we provide. We need more of it. There's not enough of it. Access is actually limiting. We're seeing Planned Parenthoods close more, but like that work is still going on in Cincinnati and Dayton. And we're really grateful to the voters of Ohio in 2023 that fought for us to stay open and grow.
Well, I think it's incredible. I think it's important. I think it's incredible. And I'm so appreciative of the work that you do. Going back to, you have always really aligned your work with what is passionate to you. But like your moves have been big moves, right? From mayor to governor to this role. When I think about people who want to make big moves or want to continue to move the projection of their life with this big momentum, can you talk about like those pivots and like how you kind of, and I know it's also been like a natural progression. It's not like you were going left and then was like, I'm turning right. Like you've kind of followed this path, but like, I want to talk about when we're ready to make moves and change, like they're really, to me, I found like there are small steps that just keep stacking themselves to make the moves. How would you explain the process to someone who's like, I want to be big, I want to be bold, especially relative to their own life? Big and bold to you or to me probably means different things, and probably to the woman listening. But
Sure.
what's your advice to women who are like, I want to make the change, I want to be bold, but I'm at one and that feels like 1,000. How do I get from one to 1,000?
Yeah, so I think I'll give a couple of examples. I was a city commissioner before I was mayor, and the first term, I was 29 when I was elected city commissioner, and I really didn't like it.
Hmm.
And the first term, I did like it was a completely different being the person in front versus like someone just working for an elected official or working on a campaign. And it took me a term to really like say, am I going to do this again? And it was in 2005 to 2009. It was a really tough time economically for Dayton. The lack of leadership was really palpable in the city, and I didn't really fully understand leadership, so I was really learning on the job and not
Yeah.
really. I wasn't doing the best at like taking in the lessons I was learning. So I did learn. I didn't realize I was learning that first term. Decided to run a second. Learned a ton in the second term. And in that second term, I decided 2 years before I ran for mayor that I was going to run. And again, like was an underdog through the whole time, and like had a team of people that were my friends, just
Yeah.
friends that believed in me.
Mm.
And we would meet, and I set out a plan for that
Yeah.
2 years. And so it wasn't even public, right? Like it was just, this is the work I'm doing. I have milestones for myself to get to this goal of just running. And so I think that is like a really good lesson of like all kinds of things. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, like it
Hmm.
is not going to happen overnight. I've learned
Yeah.
that. Like you might need like a GLP-1, and you need to
Hmm.
exercise, and you need to have a 3 month, 6 month, 9 month, 12 month plan, right? So,
Yeah.
I think thinking about that, I'm a big proponent of, I know some people hate them. I love New Year's resolutions. I love fresh things that you get to mess up, and I like to see how I did at the end of the year. So I do like goal setting, and I think that's really important. So I think if you're thinking about doing something that is big, you
Yeah.
have to take it in the chunks of the steps and celebrate those small steps too.
Ooh,
So
I love the notion of celebrating. It's so
yes,
true. Like it, we just see, especially in the age of social media, you just see people's final step. You just see the ta-da of everything.
right,
Like,
for true. Yeah,
you don't see the small meetings with your girlfriends over a cocktail where you're like, no, can we just celebrate the fact that I just filed an LLC, like, or whatever it may,
right,
which
right.
by the way is not that easy. There's so much paperwork is my nemesis. I'm
Right.
so
So,
bad at
yeah,
forms.
right.
Uh,
And so we don't take, and even in organizations, like we don't take the time to look at the quarter. We don't take the time to celebrate.
mhm.
And again, back to this idea of time being the measurer is really important. It's the only thing that's finite. And so like looking at it, quarterly, yearly, and like what I'd like to do in 2 years, and not just like yes, putting the audacious goal out there, but that does not work if you don't have the steps and you celebrate the steps. And then sometimes those steps will take you to a different goal too. And that's okay. Like, right. But that gives you a time to reassess. So that's what I would say if you have an audacious goal. Running for governor. People forget this. I ran in 2017 as well, and like did not make the ballot in 2018. I had to get out because I couldn't raise enough money. But God, that was great. Like it helped set me up for 22, right? Like
Yeah.
that was part of that work of learning folks, and learning people across the state past just this region. So,
Yeah.
and building relationships that way. So, these small steps are needed, and some of them are bigger than others, but celebrating them. And like, to your point, like, you're starting a business, there is a lot to that. And like,
Yes.
what are your goals? And it's not just like, I got to make a ton of money by this, but like, what do you want to provide? And what's the story of what you want to serve?
Yes, I love that. Two things that I'm so inspired by this celebration moment because I'm just like such a put your head down girl and like get it done. But I just recently like was like, okay, I'm kind of ready for this like evolution of just, and by evolution, sometimes that can just be like a page turn. That doesn't have to be a blow up your life, or I'm completely changing my product lines, or I'm, whatever it may be. So I'm excited for this page turn as it relates to my business. And I did this thing that I've never done before where I put in my calendar a reoccurring thing once a month. I think I have it right now. And it just says, read me. And I, in the notes section, just like bled all the things that I was like, I know this is hard. I know you're scared. Like, this is where you are right now. And then I was like, I want you to see right now, look how far you've come. Like, let's celebrate what you've done right. Or like, just something to be like, so you can like one get the fear out of your body because it will stay, but
Right.
also to be able to like, I open it once a month and I'm like almost afraid to look at it. I'm like, how bad was it? But it's like, it is kind of cool to be like, okay, I'm doing it. Maybe I've moved the needle. Maybe I've just gone from the dreaming to like I'm starting to do the planning, or maybe whatever it may be, but it makes me stop and celebrate. But I'd never looked at it in celebration. To be honest, I don't even know why I did it. I just did it on a whim.
It's
But
a
like,
great
I love the idea of connecting it to like celebrate how far you've come.
Yes, I think that's really important. Like, and like in business or nonprofits, you do strategic planning. And so
Sure.
we do that at Planned Parenthood. We have a 3-year plan. And like the quarters are great because, we have these meetings, like first with our senior team and then with the board. And like to see the movement that you've moved towards that, even amidst all, because it's hard. I mean, if you're in Planned Parenthood in Southern Ohio, like, oh, you got a lot coming at you that's surprises. And so,
Yeah. I can only
uh,
imagine.
but to see the team do that and like celebrate that, I think is really important. That's I think a great lesson.
Yeah.
I've just learned in the past couple of years. I think that's really valuable. That's a really great idea to do like a read me. I love that, Betsy. I might steal that just to get.
Please do. It is a very messy process. I don't even know why I did it, but every time I see it, I'm like half afraid and half excited, but I'm glad every time I open it.
Do you go back and like read them from like even 6 months ago? That might
It's
be
a
a.
reoccurring one, but I
Oh,
should go in and like and enter in below it and be like,
yeah,
this is where we are now. I love that. That really like locks in the celebration piece. I'm
yeah,
definitely going to do that.
that's a great idea.
It makes me excited to go look at my calendar and be like, when's my next read me?
That's awesome. That's so cool.
One of the other things that I've learned, like I kind of am like in this, I've talked a lot about pivots on this show where women are like, okay, I'm in some place and I want to pivot to somewhere else. And like, I think that your life has been a great example of like small pivots to be like, well, and evolution is kind of the same. And I often refer to it as like a now what moment. One of the things, and I'm curious to get your take on this, that has really changed my life in the past 5 years. I come from more corporate for-profit background. So like, my worth, my success, my value, all those things I had tied to metrics, like measurable things. That was plenty to untangle, but it feels great to untangle that. So now my metrics, yes, I have goals and steps and strategic plans just because I was raised that way,
Right.
but I've added this layer of like, most importantly, how do I want to feel in pursuit of that? And that is the only thing I can control. Even when you lose the race, even when the product flops, even when, I don't know, technology doesn't work and the podcast doesn't record, how do I want to feel that day? And like, that's what I'm responsible for. Are you able to like, is that something that also motivates you? I mean, I know you're so connected to your civic duty and what you're passionate about, but does that translate to how you feel and show up each day as well?
Yeah, I mean that is really hard for me too, honestly, because
Yeah, right.
I am a almost too connected to my to-do list, and I get, again, I think you have felt in this conversation, I get bored easily, and so I'll pick up too much.
Mm,
So that is something I continue to struggle with, is like how I feel. Like I do, honestly, I do struggle to get through that. It's harder.
it
I
is hard.
It is really hard. And like, look, I think when I think the question I ask is like, when do I feel really great about what I've done or what I'm doing? And it's when I see people that work for me or people that I've mentored, like doing things I never thought they could do.
Mm-hmm.
I get like a tremendous amount of joy. And like, you don't know when that's going to hit, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's an example. There are these 5 kids, they're in their 20s, but they all started out at City Hall in some way. And I was having coffee with one of them, and then he was telling me that they're still like on this text chain together. And then I was just like incredibly proud of like where they all ended up. One's an elected official today. One's working for elected officials. One like runs 6 states for preschool work. One is working in state politics. I mean, I just was like, wow, like,
Mm-hmm.
and so like that kind of hit me as a surprise. I felt really, really proud of just even the small role I had in that.
Yep.
And I think you have to know your why. Um,
Mm.
and I've really learned the past couple of years, my why is really about like how I can impact others to scale, like making difference. And so that's when I feel my best is what I learned.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
think that's when I realized that was my why. That makes
yeah.
sense.
I think that's incredibly insightful. And I think that, back to when you were saying I'm so lucky that I get to do something that I'm so passionate about, they kind of go hand in hand, right? Like you get to connect at the happiest, most successful people that I meet on this show. And I've talked to, I've probably done 150 interviews,
Oh,
are
girl.
those who are doing an extension of their natural gifts. And so they're so in their own authenticity, and like to be woo woo for a second, you're like in flow because you're like, this is me. This is just an extension of me. I love storytelling. I love connecting with people. I love highlighting other people's stories because I know it's the clue for me and the other people who are listening to what's next for me. Like, but I think to your point, like being able to live in that, it brings a level of energy and impact that can't be manufactured.
That's right. I think
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And you're probably like I'm glad to hear you validate the 150 people that you've talked to that
Mm-hmm.
that when they're feeling natural in their work, like
Mm-hmm.
and it look good. It's important to do things that feel unnatural too. Like
That's true. I'm so glad you said that. Right.
you're starting out, like it might not feel supernatural, so don't let that bother you.
Mm-hmm.
But you know when you're hitting that rhythm, and like look, it doesn't happen every day.
Mm-mm.
You're not going to feel that way every day unless you're not stretching, and so.
Yeah.
But when you feel it, like it feels great. It lasts like days and days and days, and it like helps you on the days that are failures, right? So
Yes. Yes.
that if that feeling has to be high enough when you get it, that it covers the like hard times that aren't great in the work too.
I'm so glad you brought that up because there are so many hard times,
Right.
like truly. And I think that I don't want to lose sight of that. So I'm so glad that you said that. There is like, I kind of always joke that like every day is the messy middle. And I don't think there's another side. I think we just live in the messy middle. And as soon as we can just accept that, like there is no end game. Like you said, time is finite. And that is the only truth. But I think honoring the fact that a lot of this is really messy. Like you were saying, learning on the job is really messy. Stumbling and falling is really messy. Losing the race is really messy. Getting divorced is really messy. Closing companies is really messy. Losing your job is really messy. We've all, losing your health, losing your rights, like all of that is really hard and really messy. And I think the more that we can talk about the messy out loud, again, gives people permission to be messy. Because that's kind of like, this is going to sound so cheesy. I wish I thought of something else to say, but it's all I got. That's like where the magic is, right? Like, this is where you grow. This is where you shine. Like, this is where you inspire others. This is, I think the
Right.
mess is an important part.
Yeah, the mess is where the learning is. The mess is where the greatness is. That's true. Yeah.
What do you find hard about what is hard for you right now in your job?
I think my hardest challenge is just like managing how much I want to get done. I have to like really remind
Totally.
myself that I can be a slave to my to-do list, like I mentioned, and like
Yeah.
that's the benefit to me and the downside of me. Like, I'll talk to all different people in different things, and they won't even know a piece of my life. Like really good friends. Like an example is we had an exchange student living with us from January to June. And I talk to people all the time about stuff, and then I'll be like, "Oh yeah," and our exchange student, and they'll be like, "What are you? You have an exchange student?" And I mean, like, that's how like busy I get that I like even forget to, so which is not great. So I think that's my biggest challenge, honestly, just taking the moment. Like, so I really
Yeah.
appreciate this time. Taking the moment is something really important. And I don't do that enough to assess. Like, again, I think I am prone to someone that gets bored. And so I do have like short attention span sometimes, which is great in this environment, but it's like, having reflection is, I think, really important. So today is a big one. Like, I'm talking to you today, which is so nice, Bessie. I see my therapist today. So this will be like a heavy reception, reflection day.
I
But
love
yeah,
that.
hmm
I love that.
and
And
that's
I
hard
think,
for
yeah, and like knowing what is hard for us is important, right? I
me.
think. And then I don't know, trying to figure out how to navigate it. I still haven't figured it out, but at least I'm not
Oh,
afraid of it anymore.
I think you're navigating. I think you're
Thank
navigating.
you.
You're doing a
I
great
thank
job.
you.
Yeah.
This has just been such a cup filling conversation. I think, I just so appreciate you. Like you absolutely seem like you are who you are. You get what you get, which I
Yeah.
think is
Thank
so
you.
refreshing. And I just like I love your energy. I love your passion. I love your honesty. I feel like we have inspired so many women today listening, and I'm just so grateful for the conversation.
I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for inviting me. And it's so nice to get to talk to you about this today. I'm so excited that you're down in Cincinnati. So that's super fun. So
I know. Please, can we? I would love to
oh,
hang out. I would love to grab coffee.
I'll send you some dates for coffee. I'd love it.
Yay! Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Again, I'm like the luckiest person in the world to collect these amazing people. And I'm so excited to put you in my pocket, take you with me.
Same, Betsy. Thank you.
Um, if people, want to find more about you, about Planned Parenthood, about any of the work that you share, I know you have Substack. How can people connect with you and your work?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Like if they're interested in Planned Parenthood Southwest Ohio, go to us. We're on like Instagram, Facebook, uh, TikTok. And it's at PPSWO, PPSWO,
Okay.
and then if you want to get politically active with us, we have a C4 PPSWO Act. If you want to volunteer for efforts to like raise awareness around abortion access or find out which candidates are doing great and not so great on this issue, come see us there. The other thing, I have my own podcast too, which is called Carry As You Climb. And this is great. Like these two women have like worked with me in it and have been so great and met them. I had the podcast in 2018 and 2019. 2019 was a really tough time as mayor, got overwhelmed, stopped it, and they begged,
Sure.
said, "Hey, we will work with you if you do this podcast," which is really cool. So we started it back up this year and talk to women leaders, all kinds, like nationally, locally, politics, nonprofit, corporate. So, give us a follow there. And it's on Substacks as well. You can catch me at Nan Whaley pretty much everywhere. I'm not very active on X, but, very active like on Instagram as a Gen Xer. Like that's our social media of choice, I think. So,
Yes, I agree.
so yeah, so would love for folks to give us a follow. So.
Excellent. We will link all of those in the show notes. I love that you are spread so far and wide. My last question in closing, kind of getting back to our original intention of the show. If there's a woman listening in the car right now, or unloading the dishes, or walking her dog, or doing something amazing, but she's frozen at the edge of a decision for her own life, what is the one thing you want for her to do today before she goes to bed? To get it done today before she goes to bed if she's frozen?
Tell somebody. Like,
Ooh.
tell somebody that you've made the decision. You know what the decision is. You're
Mm,
afraid to say it out loud. Tell somebody.
I love that. I love that. Man, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. This was so fun. Thanks for what you're doing. And I'm so glad you're opening more voices of women on podcasts across the world.
Thank you. It is truly an honor of a lifetime. You guys, please share this episode. This has been such an important one. We've covered so many things. Again, I so deeply believe that women's stories are so often the clues for our future selves. And this has just been an absolutely inspiring and informational one. So please share. Nan, thank you again so much. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time.